Although freelancing can be a great business model for web designers, it also has its downsides. In fact, I used to do freelancing for around a year until I got super burnt out. Constant deadlines, demanding clients, and unpredictable income all contributed to that. But now I sell Framer templates full-time, and it's by far the best decision I've made. So in this video, I'll share a bit about my freelancing experience, why I quit, and how templates transformed everything for me, and how potentially they could transform everything for you as well. Okay, so first up, how did I get into freelance web design? So back in 2022, I was working at a big Miami-based web design agency as a junior web designer. And there I really perfected my skills, and I worked just there for around 5 to 6 months until at one point I decided to start sharing my work on Twitter and potentially try to find some clients to work with on the side. So that happened pretty quickly. I found my first client, then I found another one, and then another one. And eventually I started getting referrals and my freelance business started growing. It got to the point where I could easily replace my income from the day job, and I mainly worked with freelance clients. I was earning around $2,000 to $3,000 per month, and for my standards that was pretty good because here in Bulgaria that's a very high monthly salary, so I was pretty happy with that part of the business at the time. So there were definitely a lot of things that I liked. Number one being the freedom. So coming from a day job where I had a boss over my head constantly watching what I work on, how I work, telling me when to work and when I can take days off, and going to freelancing where I decide all of that to myself was a big plus, and I really felt great at that time because I really thought I had more freedom, but as you'll see in a little, that wasn't really the case. Also, I could express my creativity a lot more because at the web design agency I was working on, I had an art director that pushed a certain style of web design that we had to follow, and I didn't always agree with that. So working with my own clients, I could really work on projects that I really want to work on. So although we have these positive sides to freelancing, there are also a lot of negatives that I saw and that ultimately discouraged me from continuing on that path. The first thing is the amount of revisions. So if you've worked with any type of web design client, you know that not always, but majority of the time there's revisions that you have to make when you send in that first draft. And sometimes that can really push the project from a project that should take a few weeks to maybe a month or two. And that was a big negative for me because I charged 50% upfront and 50% on project completion. And when the client was slow with feedback and slow with approving things, that really messed up my cash flow, so that was a big negative. Another thing that I faced was scope creep, which basically means that, for example, I set clear expectations on our first call that they'll receive a landing page, for example, with a set amount of pages, and then once we start working, they realize they need a blog maybe or something new that we didn't discuss. And most of the time, that's, I think, my mistake most likely. I didn't ask for payment for that, even though looking back at it, I definitely should have. But I've done a lot of things that weren't in the original scope for free that also pushed back the project. So that was another big negative. The third thing is the inconsistent income. When you're freelancing, as soon as you finish a project, so let's say I closed 2 clients this month and I have to invest all of my time into finishing that work, and I can't really invest a lot of time into finding new clients, so I have a full pipeline of projects. And basically when I finish these 2 projects, I'm left with no work until I manage to find another client and start on a new project again. So the inconsistent income was a huge issue because if you don't know that next month you'll make the same amount as this one, you can't really make any big investments. For example, I also tried hiring people at one point, but I could pay them for a month or two, and then in the 3rd month we wouldn't have any work and I couldn't pay them. So the inconsistent income was definitely a big downside. And finally, the last thing that I didn't like is that I always had to be ready for any revisions or fixes that I have to do on my client websites. So as we said, the one thing I liked was the freedom, but that also is not really true because when you have, like, let's say 10 clients you've done websites for, and maybe some of them find something on their website that's broken or they want changed ASAP, you have to be always ready to go in and fix that for them or they will be very unhappy. So every time I was on a vacation, I had to have my laptop with me and be ready to jump in if something urgent came up. So that was pretty much my life for around 6 to 8 months in 2023. And at one point point, after I had tried hiring people to scale this up, and after that didn't work out, I wanted to try something different that had more predictable income. And at that time, I had just started using Framer, and I also noticed that they have a Framer marketplace where they have templates for Framer. And at that time, there were very little amount of templates. There were around 200 when I first started. And for reference, now they have more than 2,000. So I was very early, and I had this idea to build templates for the leads that I got, which couldn't afford my main service. So basically, I could downsell a template to them and still get some revenue from the client. So that was my idea at first. So I built 3 super basic templates for AI agencies, short form agencies, and email marketing agencies, which were my main target audience. I submitted them to the marketplace, but they got rejected, and I actually didn't end up downselling any of my leads to those templates. But when they didn't get accepted into the marketplace, I knew I had to find another way to sell them. So I built my own website, wisetemplates.com. I uploaded them there. I recorded a few videos for those templates, which are still up and you can see, and people found them through those videos and decided to purchase them. So they did make some revenue, although not much. I believe they sold around $300 to $400 in the month of September when I launched them. So that was my first taste of the template passive income, and that really showed me that this was possible and that I had to try harder to make it work. So I spent the whole of October working on a new template just for marketing agencies, and in November I submitted it to the marketplace. It got accepted, and it actually got featured on the first page of the marketplace, and it ended up generating around $3,000 of direct revenue for that same month, and that really just blew my mind. I had never earned this amount of money without having to sacrifice my time for that. It felt really amazing just to know that this is something that I could potentially do. And after I saw that, I decided to try to go all in, but still kind of keep a balance of at least 1 to 2 freelance clients, but also try to release at least 1 or 2 templates per month as well. So for the next 6 months, from October up until like May, my life was 1 or 2 freelance clients every month, and then just the spare time invested all into templates. And in June of last year, I actually completely stopped working with freelance clients. I just help out some of my old clients here and there if they need some revisions to their website. But basically, I went all in June. And yeah, so after November, when my first template made around $3,000, it got removed from the first page of the marketplace. And that actually had a pretty big impact on my revenue. For January and February and March of 2024, I made around 2,000, maybe that 1.5K to 2,000 per month. And then the revenue slowly started going up as I released more and more templates. And by the time I decided to go all in on templates, I was making around $5,000 to $6,000 per month just from templates. And right now, for the past few months, I've been making consistently over $8,000. And in May, in fact, I broke the 10K a month revenue mark, not profit revenue, but that's still pretty good just with templates. So yeah, that's kind of my journey with the Framer template business summarized. So I've made a little table here that compares freelancing to templates, just so you have a more visual, more structured way to understand why templates are so good. So first, for freelancing, you have to sell your time for money, while with templates, you have productized income, meaning you build the template once and then you can sell it as many times as you can. With freelancing, you're limited to 1, 2, maybe maximum 3 clients at a time, and anything more than that, you're gonna get burnt out. With templates, you can sell to 100 buyers at once, and that wouldn't necessarily increase your workload a lot. With freelancing, you have to be constantly sending emails and communicating with your clients and having meetings. With templates, it's completely asynchronous. Here and there, I might get some support emails from people that have purchased my template, and I simply reply to them within 24 hours. But the freedom that comes with templates is really amazing when compared to freelancing. With freelancing, you have to constantly chase new clients. After you finish building a site, you have to go and hunt for new clients. But with templates, the only thing you have to really do is optimize for getting more traffic and more conversions. So they both have their downsides and positives, but for me, the templates business model has a lot less negatives when compared to freelancing. So if you can make it work, I think that's a great opportunity, especially right now. So if you're a freelance designer who wants to try his hand at selling Framer templates, if you have experience, if you know you can design great websites, then click the link in the description, because I'm actually offering personal one-on-one coaching where I will help you launch your first 2 profitable templates in your own template store in the next 8 weeks. So if you've ever wanted to build a digital product business, or if you just want more freedom when compared to freelancing or working at a company, then this just might be the exact thing that you need. So check it out and book a call if you want to learn more.